clear, the low 57. Friday, partly sunny and pleasant, the high 83. Saturday, sunny to partly cloudy, the high 86. Sunday and Monday, comfortable with intervals of clouds and sunshine, the high Sunday 81, high Monday 84. Tuesday, a blend of sun and clouds. It'll be warm with a shower or thunderstorm, the high 87. All day, every day, news, weather, and traffic on News Radio WFLA Orlando. I'm Drew Shannon.
Businesses, bring the best new employees on board. Find qualified, motivated candidates at Keep Orlando Working, an online job fair, April 9th and 10th.
Following is a paid program. The views expressed are those of the host and callers, and not those of News Radio WFLA Orlando, its management, or advertisers.
A Neighbor's Choice. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host. We're live and we're having a great time together once again in our beautiful Central Florida neighborhood where the problems we have, they're not that hard to solve. We're about personhood over collective. We're about individual responsibility, care for our neighbor, and finding those secret little tidbits of the natural world and the social world that we can learn about together on this program. That's what you're here for, as always, and we're always glad to be together like we always find ourselves each and every night, Monday through Thursday. Monday, 7 to 9, and Tuesday through Thursday, 8 to 9, here on News Radio WFLA Orlando. Always great to see and hear from you and your emails and the interactions we have on our Facebook live stream and YouTube. And it's just great to be in touch with folks as they navigate these interesting times that we're in. And once again, during this time, we have our friend from the Mises Institute. He's the president of the Mises Institute, which is one of the premier groups in the world for advancing the understanding of market economies, how they work, how they get derailed by shenanigans. That is Jeff Deist. How you doing, Jeff?
David, I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So how is it going, first of all, for you and yours and the folks you know down over there in Alabama, where you're at?
Well, I saw sort of a heat map today that showed the various regions in the United States and which were most locked down and which were most mobile, active, and out and about. And of course, it was the South, including Florida, which showed the most activity in terms of cars and people out and about. Now, that heat map of a sort was skewed a little bit because in the rural and agricultural parts of the South, you have to drive more just to go to the store. If you live in Manhattan, you might be sheltering in place and just walk down the block to the bodega to get your groceries and ride home, right? But nonetheless, the left was commentating that this was, a sign that the South was ignorant and they were about to get slammed with a bunch of cases. But for the most part, the bulk of the cases remain in the areas that are on lockdown now. So we're going to see. I strongly believe that the lockdown is not justified, that it's not going to work any better than other mechanisms might that we're seeing in places like Sweden. I think that the lethality of this virus is still unknown. It tends to, cause the death of people who had a lot of other health problems. And so in that sense, it's not so easy to determine who dies of coronavirus because sometimes there's several precipitating factors. And I think when it's all said and done, economics is going to rear its head, and we're going to suffer from the seen and the unseen. It's very easy to lock people down and make them not go to work and say, see, we're saving your life. But it's not so easy to see all the depredations that are going to result from a diminished economy. And every day, every week that goes by, turning the economy back around is going to be longer and harder, and it's going to make a lot of people poorer and sicker and suffering. So I'm of the mind that our markets and our scientists and our doctors can deal with the virus, but I'm not so sure that the American public can deal with the poverty that might come if we don't get this thing started again quick.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, I've heard it, the statistic that about 100,000 people die every year from FDA-approved drugs just from the side effects alone. So can you imagine, if everybody got into hysteria about that and said this is ridiculous, this is an outrage, this is an affront to our human compassion, decency, and started having a map where you can see live in your county, one person just died from an FDA approved drug, then another one did it, another one, and another one, or from totally preventable chronic illnesses, primarily due to poor lifestyle and bad nutrition advice from the USDA and their crony friends. Where they push, massive amounts of carbohydrates that just are. We had Dr. Ken Berry on last week who said 1 teaspoon a day of sugar can just elevate your immune system sometimes. Can suppress your immune system. And so when you think about the people that die from cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, it's all related to poor nutrition advice from the government. Imagine if we had a real-time counter with little bubbles that are growing around your counties and state. What would they think then about that kind of epidemic, huh?
Well, what constitutes a wartime footing? In other words, we lost something like 50 or 60,000 U.S. service members in Vietnam over a period of years during that war. And of course, that's a big number, and that's something that's very knowable. We have a wall in Washington, D.C., a memorial with those people's names on it. So that's very visible and tangible to us. And we can say, that would be a calamity if 50 or 60,000 people die from this virus. But as you mentioned, maybe it's not so easy to see, but equally true that 100,000 people die every year as a result of FDA intrusions into the medical marketplace. We don't see how every day thousands and thousands of people die in their cars, but we don't, obviously we see the utility of driving.
Right.
We're not going to ban cars. So again, it goes to the seen and the unseen, and that's one of the most difficult things for people to grasp when it comes to politics and when it comes to economics, because we want politicians to do something to solve a problem because we can see it; it's right in front of our nose. But what we don't see can be just as important, and it can actually be worse. So I don't think the amount of deaths that have occurred, nor the amount of deaths that are likely to occur in the United States, warrant a shutdown of the U.S. economy. I think that that's crazy. I think that that's a huge overreaction. And I think that basically, we're going to find out that all this quarantining is not perhaps what it was cracked up to be. People are going to get the virus anyway. Maybe we all need to get it in a minor way so that we don't get too sick, but that we develop some sort of immunity to it. And maybe that's just nature taking its course. We don't shut down America over the flu. We didn't shut down America over SARS or the H1N1 virus. And I think it's a mistake to shut down America over this.
Yeah, and it's to be fair to the more establishment line on this, they would say perhaps, well, here's the thing. This is a novel virus. It's new. We don't understand it. We don't know if you get reinfected. We don't know, a lot of variables about it, why it hits some people really hard and other people not so hard. And so because of the novelty of this, it warrants such unprecedented level of urgency and shutdown type effects. So what would you think of that?
Well, I would say that the burden of proof is on the people arguing that we need to shut down our way of life. The potential for harm is always out there in the world. There's always something. And, we don't clamor for security at every turn. That's why we drive and fly on planes and go downhill skiing and do all kinds of things that, have some risk. So there's nothing in the Constitution, there's nothing in federal law that says, the government has to show a potential harm through due process before it can take away someone's liberty, except if there's a war or a virus. No. The rule of law either matters when it matters or it doesn't. And right now, we're acting like it doesn't exist. And I think that that's short-term thinking, and I think that when cooler heads prevail, and when we look back on this, we'll look back on it with a degree of shame and alarm. At least I hope we will, because what we're doing here is not unlike mistakes we made during past wars when we shut people away or scapegoated people or whatever. So I see Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, today calling for Trump to send military troops into New York and treat this like a war. And, I just think that we've lost our minds, that we are so untethered from the idea of liberty versus security and what government can provide, which is neither really, that we don't understand where we are. And so we think that we can just have a world without risk.
And I think to put this into context for people, there's the media says, again, this is a new virus. We don't understand how it operates. And I would just contextualize that by saying, I don't think the establishment monopoly bureaucratic scientists that get all the media attention for other illnesses have the slightest clue how to deal with cancer or understand what causes it, or understand how diabetes can be treated, or understand what causes it, or understand what heart disease and what's causing it. And so they sit in their hubristic little, echo chambers where they've got all this little echo chambers in these elite areas, no competition because it's all taxpayer subsidized university grants and nonsense like that. And so they don't know what they don't know. They don't realize that as far as I see, they know just as much about causes of cancer and how to deal with it, and diabetes and heart disease and Alzheimer's as they do the coronavirus. So I think they need to be a little cautious about trying to selectively destroy our lives because of this selective hysteria around this particular disease, Jeff.
Well, there's not going to be a vaccine by April 30th.
Yeah.
Okay. And if this turns out to be something that we can kill with a $5 generic prescription of Z-Pak or whatever it might be, I certainly hope that the American people are pissed off about that and say, why did we have this calamity? When we could have just let doctors do something simple and experimental and knock this thing out much sooner and have a lot less economic destruction.
Well, Jeff, a $5 Z-Pak has shown studies in University of Salford to deal with cancer stem cells better than chemo, radiation, and surgery, according to Dr. Michael Lasanti over there. So if it can take out a cancer stem cell, maybe there's a lot of other things we don't have a clue about in our government-supported crony science in America. So let's continue to unpack this with Jeff Deist live. He's the president of the Mises Institute. Hey, follow him at Jeff Deist on Twitter so you can keep track of the economic implications of what's going on. I'm David Gornoski. Don't go anywhere.
Hey, it's Bud Hettinger. The Central Florida Auto Dealers Association wants you to know that as part of your community, we're all in this together. They're taking great steps in helping you and your family. Many of the dealers are offering to bring your next car to your door and avoid you having to come into the dealership. They even pick up your vehicles to be serviced and bring them right back to you. These are just a few ways Central Florida Auto Dealers are making sure your vehicle's ready for you when you are ready to hit the road again. The road to recovery starts with all of us.
Guarding your nest egg with Mike Lester.
We often hear people talk about rearranging, rebalancing our portfolios. How impactful can that actually be?
When people come to sit down, we put together financial plans for them. We're doing that type of an analysis. And if we can help people get more efficient through reallocation, as you said, rearranging their portfolios, they're going to be much, much better off moving forward.
Find out more Saturday afternoon at 2 on News Radio WFLA Orlando and at guardingyournestegg.com.
Securities offered through WEG Inc., member FINRA and SIPC.
When protecting your family becomes more important than you ever expected, Fence Outlet is there. Secure your family backyard and add value to your home.
Fence Outlet, over 25 years, locally owned in Central Florida. We are moving Orlando forward by protecting our valued employees and your family with simple online appointments and no-contact delivery. The time has never been better to take advantage of our lowest pricing and 0% financing for 12 months. We're waiting to help you today at fenceoutlet.com.
Do you know you might be overpaying for your Medicare supplement plan? Do you get lost in an alphabet maze of plans like A, B, C, D, and G, F? Would you like help getting out of the maze and finding the very best plan for you? We are experienced Medigap agents at Health IQ, and we are on a mission to give people like you fair and square Medigap rates. Health IQ is the only insurance agency that rewards seniors proactively working on their health, like eating right and exercising. You don't have to be an athlete to save money. We reward healthy lifestyles of all kinds. Do you take your vitamins and supplements? Do you stay active and in the know about things that impact your health? If so, you could save money with Health IQ. Let us help you take care of your Medicare supplement needs. To see if you qualify for exclusive savings on Medicare supplement insurance, go to healthiq.com/Medigap. To start saving, go to healthiq.com/Medigap. That's HEAL.
Stand by.
U.com/MEDIGAP.
Health IQ is an agency offering plans from different insurance carriers. No government or Medicare affiliation. Coverage and special rates not available in all counties or cases.
Unpacking all the mysteries, the confusion, the decadence, and the silliness from the swamp. As always, we're a neighbor's choice. I'm David Gornoski here with Jeff Deist, the president of the Ludwig von Mises Institute. Visit them at Mises.org because you got to get the truth. And the truth is you don't need violence. You don't need government central planners and their monopolists to run your lives. And that's what Jeff Deist is here with us tonight to kind of unpack what that looks like in our daily navigation of this unique time. So Jeff, I saw a story here that on Reason.com that they said that the FDA has gotten in the way of letting these distilleries make sanitation, these alcohol sanitation, alcohol. They've put all kinds of roadblocks in the way. So, it's just amazing how the groups that always pretend to be our saviors are really the little devils in our side sometimes when it comes down to really getting things done,
Well, if government was so omniscient and effective, we wouldn't have coronavirus sweeping across America, correct? I mean, that's almost by definition a government failure, not a market failure. We have entrusted so-called public health and disease prevention and infectious diseases to organizations like the World Health Organization, the Centers for Disease Control in America, the NIH, et cetera, et cetera. So almost by definition, the very people who have failed us are now lecturing us and hectoring us and calling us stupid if we don't agree with the shutdown. And I think this is not some sort of failure of the marketplace. I mean, infectious diseases happen. This is part and parcel of the human experience. This has been happening since the beginning of time. And centuries ago, there was not much anyone could do about it. There was no welfare. There was no Fed. There was no stimulus. There was no bailout. People had to go to work anyway. They went to work during the Black Death. They went to work during the London bombings. They went to work during the Spanish flu. This was just part of life. So it's only in the modern Western world that we have this sense that we can all just stay home and get a check from the government and somehow that'll be okay, and that this is the way to handle a virus. Well, it's not the way to handle a virus. The way to handle it is through, first of all, local action, because conditions vary. In the middle of Wyoming is not like Manhattan. And to allow people to come up with the solutions that they think are best for them. And oftentimes that would be keeping old people locked away, but not young, productive people who are very unlikely to fall ill from the virus. So it's a mess, but I think what we have to understand is that the same people we're looking to be our saviors are the people who have failed us. And we ought to be more circumspect about how much power we give them, and think that next time that there's a crisis or something, maybe these aren't the people we ought to be turning to.
Yeah, I mean, Pat Buchanan has an article out. America may never be the same. Nation facing hunger crisis as demand for food banks soar. Some could wait 20 weeks to receive stimulus checks. White House says it's not enough following guidelines, says not enough people are following their guidelines. I mean, it's just that this is a total human error-driven catastrophe in the making here if we can't have some common sense prevail here. You just can't destroy the whole foundation of civilization to stamp out a virus. And yet that seems to be something we're not waking up to yet.
Well, in truth, food stamps and food banks are the same thing as bread lines during the Depression. They're just less visible. So we have bread lines in America, in effect. And if we let this go on, I fear where we're going, because an economy is not like an engine where you turn it on and turn it off. I mean, there's a lag. In a few more weeks, a lot of people won't have a job to return to. And when we talk about, keeping people at home for a month or two under lock and key, and then sending them some goofy check in the mail or direct deposit $1,200 in a couple months, well, we've already seen that most states now are imposing moratoriums on evictions. So certainly people in the lower income strata are going to just stop paying rent. And I've seen that virtually all the governors, including Governor DeSantis now in Florida, have sort of rolled over on the idea of some kind of martial law travel bans domestically, that, unless you are deemed essential, you have to stay home and shelter in place. Now, it varies how rigidly that's being enforced by police. We're getting different reports of that. So this is really becoming something where it's unprecedented, and it's something that we're doing to ourselves. Again, the whole reaction is wildly out of whack with respect to the numbers. It just doesn't make sense. So, we've gotten something into our head psychologically, and 24-hour news media and internet and social media feed on this. So our sense of fear is much greater than the virus would justify or warrant.
And it goes back to the whole idea that, look, this is not a binary choice. I think people should do their best to stay away from people as much as they can when they don't know what a new contagious thing is all about. And I think people should do their best to practice hygiene and immune boosting nutritional practices and so forth. And they should do everything they can to help their employees have that distancing option if they can. And they should wear masks. But of course, they told us not to wear masks. Now they're telling us that maybe they were totally dead wrong about it. Like WHO was wrong about so many things, those little WHO globalists. But, at the end of the day, it's not about violence that's going to solve things. I'm looking at a headline from The Smoking Gun. It says, New Jersey man 100 charged with violating state's coronavirus emergency rules. According to police, a 100-year-old mourner for a funeral in Lakewood in New Jersey charged 15 men because they came, I guess, to mourn, and they were arrested or something. So, this is the kind of thing that you would not imagine would come so quickly and so swiftly to America,
No, it's not something you would imagine. It's just the course of a few weeks. And you have to ask yourself, are we really that advanced economically, technologically, modern medicine, that a simple virus can come along and put the entire Western world into lockdown and a severe economic tailspin? I mean, this isn't a meteor. This isn't a volcano. This isn't an epic earthquake or, a string of hurricanes. This is a virus.
Right.
We have antiviral drugs. We have antiviral protocols. We have, cleaners and masks and gloves and all kinds of ways to deal with this. So it really puts into question just how fragile our economy and our society are. And that goes back to a lot of things. We have to look at this broadly and say that our prosperity wasn't really what we thought it was. A lot of it was based on debt. A lot of it was based on low interest rates. A lot of it was based on what the Federal Reserve does. And so we become lulled into a false sense of security, and we expect life to go on and go on swimmingly, and we expect government to protect us and to keep the economy plugging along, and we expect all kinds of things, and that's fine as long as they're working. But when they don't, and we start asking questions and pointing fingers and placing blame, it's important that people like you, David, on your show, tell the story, tell the correct story, because I don't want the powers that be to get away with blaming this economic collapse on a simple virus, because there's a lot more to it than that. There was a lot of debt and misfortune baked into the cake. And the fact that a virus came along and sort of triggered this economic downturn doesn't mean that it caused it. It means that it exposed it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I wanted to get your take on, as someone who spends your life as the chairman of a group that's advancing markets and freedom and voluntary exchange and enterprise and service and gifting and all this. What do you think of this constant deception, this myth that whenever there's this swindling to the tune of $6 trillion that's going to be given to the elite industries and corrupted industries and oligopolies and so forth, plus, as you said, the debt that's already been piled up, that it's always your freedom that's to blame, right? It's always markets, which is a code word for your freedom to do what you want to do and live your life as your God-given right is to live it. That's always the scapegoat, the penultimate scapegoat. Yeah, you got Trump scapegoat and all the other little scapegoats. But the real scapegoat always is your freedom when we have these things. So what would you say to that narrative?
Right. It's almost as though we are supposed to feel a sense of guilt for the economy collapsing and for the coronavirus coming along, because both sides of the political spectrum say, sort of want this to fit their narrative. And the left wants to say, see, if you guys hadn't elected Trump, and if you'd spent more on infrastructure, and if you'd, properly funded the CDC and and we wouldn't have this if Hillary were president.
Yeah, give them a little bit more money, and maybe they'll make those test kits finally work, right? They can't even make a test kit. Good God.
Right, and the right wing wants to say, well, we shouldn't have any dealings with China, and this is all China's fault. And but nonetheless, what kind of country do we live in? Are we really robust, or are we fragile? And we're finding out that we're very, very fragile, and that starts on the individual level with our own psyches. If we're allowing this to beat us down or freak us out or turn us into catatonic, couch-sitting TV watchers, then we're not really worthy of our grandparents, are we? Because they faced real dangers like World War II. And here we are with a virus that may be slightly more infectious and may be slightly more lethal than the common flu.
And if we had, here's the thing about us? And here's the thing that bugs me so much, Jeff, and this is why I keep pushing this side of the conversation so much everywhere I go, is that if we had if we could get out of the dark ages of government-rigged nutritional science, right, that's lobbied and paid for by big wheat, big soy, big corn, big garbage, all that crap that you don't want to eat. If we had real free market-driven, data-driven science, a lot of folks would not be sitting like sitting ducks with asthma and all these horrible diseases that could be easily treated if nutrition was the foundation for medical science. You don't even get nutrition science in medical school. You get like one class, right? Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine, and they don't even teach that over there. And then these fools want to lecture us and say, sorry, folks, no more freedom for you. Our stupid science folks can't figure out how to take care of the human body. We got everybody sick over here. It's our fault. But no, we're going to blame you guys for having too much freedom. Stop going to church or we'll put you in jail. What stupidity is this, right? It's just ridiculous, Jeff.
It's unbelievable. The standard American diet, obesity, heart disease, stroke, cancer. I mean, we are a country that is eating and drinking ourselves to death. And so that alone makes us far more susceptible to disease and illness. And of course, that probably explains a lot of the disparity in deaths between Italy and other countries in Europe was just the amount of smoking, the amount of obesity involved. So the comorbidity that combined with the virus to put people at risk. And I think we're going to find that out when we ultimately get the statistics, the final statistics out of Italy when this whole thing is done. But again, it goes to the question of fragility. Are we really a prosperous country? A prosperous country would have a healthy populace. Almost by definition, you would require that. So is our prosperity false? Has it been engineered by the Fed and by low interest rates? And are we actually fragile in that we're kind of sick and susceptible? And we clearly the answer is the second. We're sick and susceptible.
Jeff, what are some reading materials that folks stuck at home during this situation might want to read about understanding how markets work so they can be really ahead of the game in terms of understanding these forces that are around them?
Well, I mean, look, a lot of your listeners might disagree. They might think that this shutdown is entirely justified and that you and I are adding to the problem by questioning it and maybe even encouraging people to go out and about. So I would encourage them to go to Mises.org and just look at our article on the homepage that says "End the Shutdown" and just read it and understand the arguments, whether you agree with them or not. I think that's an important starting point because it raises a lot of the questions about trade-offs that people aren't really thinking about. They're thinking about what's right in front of them. They're not thinking long-term. And we see that so often, not just with respect to this virus, but in politics and in economics, we see short-term thinking. And when you do that year after year after year, decade after decade, that kicks the problem down the road. And so we're paying for that now. We're paying for that short-term mentality. And I think that same focus applies here. What's going to be the long-term cost of shutting down the economy versus what we don't know, but what we think is the short-term gain.
Well, very good. Always a pleasure to hear from you, Jeff. Follow him at Jeff Deist on Twitter or go to Mises.org to stay in touch with his work. Thanks for joining us, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be right back on A Neighbor's Choice with anthropologist Mark Sunwall. We're going to understand why is it that politicians are so driven by fear rather than faith. We'll continue in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
S&W Kitchens has been proudly caring for the homes of our Central Florida neighbors since 1977. That's a lot of happy customers right here in Central Florida. Seeing as how we're all spending more and more time in our homes, as you look around, do you love your home? Is the kitchen the heart of your home? Would you like to update your bath? Well, S&W Kitchens are here to help. Go online at wkitchens.com and look at all the possibilities. And while you find yourself with some extra time on your hands, you can schedule your free consultation with a virtual design consultation with S&W Kitchens. It's true. Even though you can't meet face-to-face, you can explore your possibilities with S&W Kitchens.
Your guest is ready.
Design consultation. Again, you can find out more right now at wkitchens.com. Making the appointment is simple, and with lots of financing options available too, you can get started creating a home you're going to love with S&W Kitchens.
Hi, I'm Josh Clark, one of the hosts of the Stuff You Should Know podcast. There's a lot of conflicting information out there about the novel coronavirus, so we decided to do an episode on COVID to help clear through the clutter of what you should know about it. You can hear how COVID-19 works this week on Sunday Night Podcast, right here on this iHeartRadio station. We hope you'll join us. In the meantime, stay safe, wash those hands, and don't panic.
Sunday night at 10, right here on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Do you know you might be overpaying for your Medicare supplement plan? Do you get lost in an alphabet maze of plans like A, B, C, D, and G, F? Would you like help getting out of the maze and finding the very best plan for you? We are experienced Medigap agents at Health IQ, and we are on a mission to give people like you fair and square Medigap rates. Health IQ is the only insurance agency that rewards seniors proactively working on their health, like eating right and exercising. You don't have to be an athlete to save money. We reward healthy lifestyles of all kinds. Do you take your vitamins and supplements? Do you stay active and in the know about things that impact your health? If so, you could save money with Health IQ. Let us help you take care of your Medicare supplement needs. To see if you qualify for exclusive savings on Medicare supplement insurance, go to healthiq.com/Medigap. To start saving, go to healthiq.com/medigap. That's HEALTHIQ.com/MEDIGAP.
Health IQ is an agency offering plans from different insurance carriers. No government or Medicare affiliation. Coverage and special rates not available in all counties or cases.
My mom's a breast cancer survivor. The United Breast Cancer Foundation saved her life, and they need your help so they can continue saving more women's lives. Help them by donating your car. They'll provide fast, free 24-hour pickup, and you receive a charitable tax deduction. They take cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs, running or not. Call 24 hours a day, 800-993-1368. Your donation could literally save women's lives. Call today, 800-993-1368. 800-993-1368.
Hey, it's Melissa Fox from Good Morning Orlando. Join me Thursday nights at 9 o'clock when I do my thing called Connection Show. It's relationship radio with a twist. We invite experts in the field to come and help us out with everything from relationship problems to health questions and more. Sponsored by Stages of Life Medical Institute in Longwood. Every Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Listen to the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Search Connection Show.
College recruiters get valuable face-to-face interaction with potential students in real time during our Education Summit, April 16th and 17th.
Stand by.
Chat with students, grow fall enrollment, and make a real connection. To sign up for this innovative two-day event, email collegefair@iheartmedia.com.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host. We're live. You can join us on our Facebook live stream, our YouTube live stream, or call us at 407-916-5400. And I'm joined by a very special guest. He is an anthropologist and economist in the Gainesville area, Mark Sunwall. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Great. And I saw you had a new commentary out called Flash Gordon, a little pun on the old Flash Gordon show, right? Or why the crises are different these days. So, the general gist I got about it that I wanted to have you talk about is, why is it that so many folks in leadership are so driven by fear rather than trust or faith?
Right. Yeah, it's a silly title for an article where I'm trying to hit about some fairly important things and serious issues. First thing I wanted to say, and this is sort of as a general disclaimer, is I'm not saying anything with regard to the seriousness of this situation. We all realize that we need to protect ourselves and to be as prudent as possible when being out and when we're with our friends and that sort of things, our family. So we have to make sure that we're all protected and that all possible prudence and due diligence has been taken, right? However, there are some elements in the present situation which aren't specifically, they aren't specifically within the rubric of a medical situation or a health crisis per se. The way in which our institutions have responded to this health crisis not only have to do with the relationship between men and molecules or between human beings and health, they also have to do with conditioning factors in our institutions themselves. And as you said, in my article, I referred to the fact that there's a great deal of fear, not the fear necessarily of germs, but the fear of human censure. And this human censure, as you know very well, involves the concept of scapegoating, right? You've talked quite a bit on your show, I know, about scapegoating and René Girard and that sort of thing. But during periods of crisis, during periods of uncertainty and anxiety, there's a tendency within society to blame somebody, right? The other day, I think you know this, there was a person who works with the Libertarian Christian Institute called Carrie Baldwin, right? And she talked a little bit about scapegoating during periods of crisis. And she said one of the groups that tends to be scapegoating are folk devils, marginalized people, people on the outside of society, people who are despised, right? These people tend to be blamed whenever there's a problem, a crisis, when there's fear, a war, calamity, epidemic, earthquake, whatever it is, right? These people, these folk devils may be outside of society to the extent that they don't really have any political control, right? A very good example would be Jews during the Middle Ages, during the Black Plague, when they were blamed essentially for bringing on the Black Plague. And that's a very important and very sensitive thing that everybody has to worry about. There's something else, however, and this is more in the mainstream of the Girardian theory, that another kind of, and maybe more strategically important kind of scapegoating goes on with the elites, right? The people not on the outside or the margins of the society, but the people at the very center of society, right? And as Girard has noted, these people tend to be the objects of envy, right? And they also tend to be the objects of heightened expectations, right? In other words, if we are in a situation where there's a great deal of fear, when there is not just fear, but a real danger in society, we tend to put heightened expectations on the people who we consider responsible for the situation, right? Sometimes those expectations are so great that the people who we consider the responsible ones, the elite, the controllers, the managers, themselves become subject to fear and subject to a fear of failure, right? And so they begin to react not out of prudence or out of planning, but out of panic, right? Essentially, that's the point I was trying to get across.
Yeah, and yet from a biblical standpoint, the admonition is to fear not, right? When the kingdom of Christ is inaugurated. So how does that juxtapose with the way that we're dealing with this and our focus on modern leaders to guide us through things?
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, right? We're living in a different period of time, right? When you referred to the kingdom of God and to faith conquering fear, it's a kind of rhetoric that people in the past would have been more sympathetic to or perhaps even more knowledgeable about, right? It's still as true as it ever was, but in terms of the environing society that we live in, something very odd and very negative has occurred, and that is that what we used to think of as the wisdom of revelation or of tradition or even the wisdom of our own personal experience has been more or less supplanted by expert knowledge, right? So today people don't look so much to a transcendental source for salvation. They tend to look towards the expert, towards the hero, as it were. That's why I interjected this rather silly business about Flash Gordon, right? Remember in that camp movie, I believe this was 1980, by Dino De Laurentiis, right? There was this revival of the 1930s comic character Flash Gordon. And it's rather an amusing little movie, but the point is that there's a lyric by the band Queen, who everybody is familiar with, and it goes, "He's saving every one of us, he's saving every one of us," right? Well, here's the dilemma of the person who is in an elite position today, somebody in the professions or in academia or science, right? You are expected to save everyone. In other words, the modern concept of specialist knowledge or elite knowledge or expert knowledge is very similar to the old concept of magic, right? We know that Isaac Asimov once said that if a high technology society were suddenly to appear to somebody who didn't know that technology, it would be effectively the same as magic. Mm-hmm. So what we're really living in today is not a society where at the apex there is a divine present. There is at the apex of our consciousness and thinking, I'm not speaking personally myself, but I'm talking about the majority way of thinking, is the expert and expert knowledge. So in a sense, the expert has become a magician. We're not living on faith anymore. We're living on whatever the expert presents to us as facts. Now, if the expert is indeed presenting facts, that's all well and good. But we don't know that. We know only that human beings are fallible, mortal, and they can't deliver on the kind of promises that we would like them to deliver if those promises were to release us from the chains of mortality, from ignorance, from poverty, or whatever.
Got a break in a minute.
That is beyond the ability of human flesh to accomplish. Right? So, yes, Flesh Gordon is what I call this.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and it reminds me of the office of the medicine man in ancient societies, who was given an elite status, was supposed to be the magician for causing cures, but if he failed, he was often scapegoated and destroyed and driven out of society. Mark Sunwall, always great to hear from you, and I'm going to have you on again sometime so we can unpack this further and some other topics in this vein. Thanks again for joining us, Mark.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Take care, and I hope you will be doing well, and I hope we will all be doing
Thank you.
So God bless. Take care.
God bless you. We'll continue live on A Neighbor's Choice with Dr. You and Science in You up next.
Do you know you might be overpaying for your Medicare supplement plan? Do you get lost in an alphabet maze of plans like A, B, C, D, and G, F? Would you like help getting out of the maze and finding the very best plan for you? We are experienced Medigap agents at Health IQ, and we are on a mission to give people like you fair and square Medigap rates. Health IQ is the only insurance agency that rewards seniors proactively working on their health, like eating right and exercising. You don't have to be an athlete to save money. We reward healthy lifestyles of all kinds. Do you take your vitamins and supplements? Do you stay active and in the know about things that impact your health? If so, you could save money with Health IQ. Let us help you take care of your Medicare supplement needs. To see if you qualify for exclusive savings on Medicare supplements,
he's ready.
Go to healthiq.com/Medigap. To start saving, go to healthiq.com/Medigap. That's HEALTHIQ.com/MEDIGAP.
Health IQ.
Homeowners, with all of the recent world events, mortgage rates have continued to drop to about 50-year lows. So if your 30-year fixed rate mortgage is higher than 3.5%, you should call True Mortgage now to see if you qualify for a no closing cost refi. And when I say no closing costs, I mean no title, escrow, appraisal, or lender fees. Every day you wait, you're burning cash. And as we all know, the world turns in unexpected ways. So what are you waiting for? If your 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is higher than 3.5%, call True Mortgage now to see how much money you can save. Call 800-821-7793. 800-821-7793. That's 800-821-7793. Or visit TrueMortgageLoan.com. Sign on the line, Inc. DBA True Mortgage is located at 100 Spectrum Center Drive, Suite 520, Irvine, California, 92618. NMLS number MLD 1713. Not all loans apply. Equal housing lender.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. There's really nothing as good or pure as being thanked for helping someone. Think of the thank you card and how important that is to us. Since passing the legalization of medical marijuana for all of Florida, I've been thanked thousands and thousands of times. By day, my job is to hold insurance companies, drug makers, and makers of unsafe products accountable. It's hard because they have so much money compared to mine, but I have something more powerful: truth and justice. In my drive for medical marijuana, dark money poured in trying to stop me, but I had something else: truth and you. And we won in a landslide. I've met so many of you who've stopped me to say thanks, walking on the beach, shopping in a grocery store, honking while driving down the road, usually with a thumbs up. And I know what that thumbs up means. So now let me thank you for voting yes and for winning. And most of all, thank you for thanking me. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com. Dial pound law on your cell. Offices, Orlando.
A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm David Gornoski. We're live for our Science and You edition of the program each Thursday night. You can always enjoy Science and You. And I'm here with Dr. Yu. How you doing, Dr. Yu?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, I want to know, you are our physicist, our chief science advisor on A Neighbor's Choice. What do you have cooking in the news today?
Well, there is a news published 3 days ago. It's called Voyager 2. That's NASA's Voyager 2. Flew through a giant magnetic gas bubble during Uranus flyby. So that's the title.
I'm looking at the story. It's a big magnetic bubble field, huh? What's going on? Why is Uranus doing this? It's kind of an oddball, huh?
There's two things interesting me about this story. Number one, it is another evidence of Uranus has a magnetic field, right? So that's part of a confirmation of the theory, of the Yuan theory. Say, so-called gravity attraction is nothing more just a magnetic attraction. So that's one thing interesting me. Another thing, it explains by this flyby, it explains why Uranus behaves different than other planets in the solar system. So one thing is, during this flyby, so the instrument on the Voyager 2 recorded, as the flyby recorded a little gas bubble. So when they fly in, the magnetic instrument recorded, say, wind direction, say north. But after they get out a certain distance, they find out, wow, it changed the pole, changed the two different directions. What that means? That means there the gas bubble is a magnetic bubble, and this magnetic bubble confirms so there is a strong magnetic field around Uranus. So that confirms Uranus has a strong magnetic field. That's how Uranus and the sun can attract, can revolute around sun because of a magnetic
Dr.
field.
Yu, we're out of time, but it's always interesting to hear Science and You. I always appreciate what you say. We'll have you on next week for a longer segment, but we'll see you on Monday night. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com if you have a story or a guest suggestion. And remember, you don't have to succumb to fear. You have everything you need. So go have a great life with your family, and we'll see you next time.
News, weather, and traffic.